SnowTrax is sponsored by Ski-Doo. Better rides, better riders. Yamaha. Snowmobiles built for the real world. That's the Yamaha Advantage. And by FXR Racing. World-class outerwear.
What's the first thing you think about when you hear the words Yamaha Snowmobiles? Is it the bulletproof single-cylinder Bravo that's been around for over 20 years? Or maybe it's the modern era's first four-cylinder snowmobile, the VMAX 4. Or is it the industry's only true mid-size sleds, the Snow Scoot and Snow Sport? My guess is that the first thing every snowmobiler on the planet thinks of first when they hear the words Yamaha Snowmobiles is four-stroke power. 2013 marks the 10-year anniversary of Yamaha's first four-stroke snowmobile introduction. But four-stroke technology is not the only thing Yamaha pioneered in the snowmobile industry. It shouldn't come as a surprise that it was Yamaha who was first to install oil injection systems on snowmobile motors, used molded rubber tracks, and pioneered the use of power steering. In the grand scheme of things, these innovations had a larger impact on the industry as a whole than the introduction of four-stroke power into mainstream snowmobiling. But it's four-stroke power that Yamaha holds as their biggest accomplishment and contribution to the industry, and in reality, it's likely what Yamaha will be remembered for generations to come. The four-stroke snowmobiles we have today are a far cry from the ones we started out with back in 2003 when Yamaha introduced the RX-1 and blew the minds of pretty much everybody in the snowmobile industry. But like many people who are much smarter than me have said many times, you gotta know where you came from before you know where you're going. The 2003 RX-1 demanded respect for one very important reason. This was a purpose-built four-stroke snowmobile from the ground up. Yamaha didn't just start with a current two-stroke chassis and shove a four-banger in there. They started with a blank sheet of paper. Despite what most people believe, the base for the RX-1 motor did not start with the R1 street bike motor. Its beginnings came from the 1000cc watercraft power plant with some significant changes. First, an internal gear reduction system was needed to deal with the huge disparity between two-stroke and four-stroke engine RPM. Typical snowmobile clutch systems are not designed to work at 11,000 RPM. This required a whole new engine case and crank. What was no surprise to anyone who saw it was that the RX-1 sported an entirely new chassis for Yamaha that integrated a large number of unique features tailored specifically to four-stroke power. Most notably, the engine was mounted backwards compared to a traditional two-stroke. It sucked air in from the front and expelled its exhaust from the rear. The exhaust was routed straight out the rear of the motor, under the seat, and out the back of the sled. This was something completely new in the industry and required a myriad of changes to the gas tank, seat, tunnel, and trunk areas. The RX-1 opened the door to a whole new way of thinking in the snowmobile industry. The idea that things should be done a certain way because that's how they'd always been done was replaced by a new wave of innovation and design ideas. In terms of performance, the RX-1 impressed most with its smooth, even power delivery. It got great gas mileage, didn't expel a single puff of blue smoke, and started on command. It was also really fast when run against 700 and 800cc two-strokes of its day. From day one, the RX-1 saw huge success in the drag racing community and formed a huge gathering of followers who embraced a motor that could be turbocharged with fewer negative side effects than a two-stroke. It wasn't long after the RX-1 started to grow in popularity that Yamaha saw the opportunity to sell four-stroke sleds into other classes. Their two-stroke trail touring sleds were becoming uncompetitive in their respective classes, and a change was needed. It came in the form of an 1100cc three-cylinder four-stroke motor, and it was called the Vector. The Vector had its roots in a three-cylinder four-stroke motor Yamaha produced years ago. Its power attributes proved compatible with the performance requirements of a snowmobile, so Yamaha completely reworked it and fit it into a version of the RX-1 chassis. The Vector has always been well known for its reliability and fuel economy. It's a smooth motor with decent power down low, and it has adequate performance in the 120 horsepower trail touring classes. It wasn't long before the four-stroke Vector was used as the base for an all-new 2-up Venture model. In 2006, the RX-1 was replaced by the Apex lineup that improved on rider ergonomics, engine power, and ride and handling. The Apex took four-stroke technology to a whole new level in the snowmobile industry. Advanced electronics, Innovative intake and exhaust setups and even more improvements in ride quality resulted in a sled that was extremely fast, more comfortable than the RX-1 had ever been, and rode better than any Yamaha we'd ever ridden. During the development of the Apex, Yamaha had its sights set on a new class of snowmobile, something the industry had been tiptoeing around for many years but had never jumped into with both feet. If four-stroke technology worked in big horsepower sleds, why not try it in a smaller horsepower class? Thanks to such a wide variety of four-stroke motors already in production, finding the right pieces to build the all-new Phaser's 500cc twin-cylinder four-stroke motor was not difficult for Yamaha. The Phaser stunned the industry, at first with its ultimately strange appearance. It then stunned the industry again by churning out over 80 horsepower out of only 500 cc's and revving 12,000 RPM at full squeeze. The critics were sure the Phaser's overachieving 500 twin couldn't survive long full-throttle runs with a max RPM so much higher than anything the industry had ever seen. But Yamaha proved once again, as a motor company first, they know how to build a motor that will last. By this point, the industry was making a drastic shift towards lightweight, rider-forward designs following Skidoo's Rev platform. Interestingly, Yamaha was working on a rider-forward design of their own, built around a version of the Vector's three-cylinder motor that put out 130 horsepower. The Nitro, first revealed in 2007, was met with much anticipation and excitement. Its mix of excellent ergonomics and absolutely perfect power delivery gave four-stroke groupies something new to love. It also became the platform for an almost laser-guided focus on winning a national snowcross final with a four-stroke sled, something many in the industry said couldn't be done. Yamaha's factory pro-class rider Robbie Malinowski proved all of the naysayers wrong during the 2007 snowcross season with a legitimate pro-open win in Brainerd, Minnesota aboard a prototype Yamaha Nitro, adding even more fuel to the four-stroke fire. This was the final leap for Yamaha to abandon two-stroke technology altogether and rebrand themselves as a four-stroke only manufacturer. They now had products to compete in nearly every category and to sell to nearly every buyer. So what does this synopsis of Yamaha's history with four-stroke power tell us about the future? Well, here's what we know. When the North American economy took a downturn, Yamaha was forced to shift its R&D resources to the transportation needs of developing nations, transportation such as motorcycles and mopeds. The R&D department was also bogged down with bogus lawsuits filed against Yamaha's Rhino side-by-side, lawsuits which thankfully they fought and won. Here's some good news. Yamaha just recently announced they're going to start reinvesting in R&D for all recreational products. From what we understand, they intend to do it in a big way, especially for products poised for the North American markets. So on one hand, you've got Yamaha, a motor company who's been producing excellent quality four-stroke snowmobiles for a decade, but hasn't been able to innovate the way we know they could. On the other hand, you've got a marketplace flooded with new and exciting technology year after year, and Yamaha truly can't afford to let the gap in technology grow any larger. The market is evolving. Consumers are asking for new and different features, technology, and performance. We've seen other OEs completely redesign entire platforms just to keep things fresh. Today, it's not good enough to just build a great snowmobile. You have to build a great snowmobile that grabs the consumer's attention and doesn't let go till the check is cleared at the dealer. Which is why we think the next big thing from Yamaha is going to be built on an all-new, four-stroke specific platform that includes all the innovation and build quality Yamaha is known for. Lots of speculation has been flying around the office and the industry about what this new vehicle will look like inside and out. Our guess is that it'll be lighter weight, with a lower center of gravity, rider-forward ergonomics, and possibly more power. As to how the engineers at Yamaha put a package like this together, we think that part is going to amaze everyone. Super Sport, Sport, 440, Trail, 500, 600, 650, XCF, XCR, XC600, XC700, XLT, RXL, Ultra, and Storm. All of these sleds have one thing in common. They are all Indies, and almost without exception, they were all considered the best of the best in their day. The Indy is credited for revolutionizing ride and handling, It set benchmarks for performance, it won countless races and awards, and it was ridden literally millions of miles by everyday consumers for more than 2 decades. If ever there was a sled that had an impact on our sport, the Indy is it. The Indy was around long before I was, and yet as a kid I can remember looking at that sled in the yard and dreaming of the day I could ride my own Indy. And sooner than later, that day came. My very first sled was a 1988 Indy 400 with a low windshield. So needless to say, the Indy holds a special place in my heart. Since retro is so hot right now, this is the perfect time to bring the legendary Indy 600 back with a technological refresh, but all the incredible value, performance, and fun it delivered since long before my head sucked air. The all-new Indy 600 doesn't disappoint on any level. For starters, it's simple, all-black plastic with an excellent representation of an '89 Indy 500 graphics scheme. Looks slicker than David Beckham's six-pack. For a sled that's mostly black, this thing sure does turn a lot of heads. What really impressed me though was the chassis layout and how even it truly captures the essence of the original Indy. No, it's not a rush, and thank goodness for that. In 2013, the Indy combines the stellar handling and excellent rigidity of Polaris's Pro-Ride variable caster dual A-arm front suspension setup with a more traditional solid tunnel and in-track coupled rear skid frame. What you get is a sled that rides great, handles absolutely amazing, yet doesn't cost an arm and a leg. For anyone present in the early 80s when the Indy was first introduced, this may sound very familiar. The rest of the sled has been pieced together with a real eye for authenticity. On the base model, you'll find a set of basic, preload adjustable steel body shocks. The upscale SP model, though, gets a set of rebuildable aluminum body shocks. The gauge package is a new unit from Polaris without a lot of bells and whistles. It has all the info you need and not much else. All controls and switchgear are standard Polaris stuff, and the only thing we really think is missing is a set of rear idler wheels. In their day, Indies were known to be overachievers in terms of performance in their class. These new Indies get the full jam 2-injector clean fire mill found in all Rush models, and in this chassis, this motor feels strong and pulls hard. In fact, every aspect of this sled is pleasing to the rider. It feels great to sit on with its IQ-style seat, adjustable riser, and all-new one-piece handlebar with integrated and heated hooks. It handles absolutely amazing thanks to the variable caster front suspension's nearly complete elimination of bump steer, and it rides great thanks to a well-valved shock package. Now, if retro is what you're into and nothing else matters, the Indy is going to be a home run for you. Unlike Polaris's excellent Retro Rush graphics packages, the Indy doesn't just look the part. The entire sled is a throwback to its namesake. But if retro style with modern performance is what you're after, well dang it, the Indy is still a home run for you. This sled captures everything we love about snowmobiling, but isn't going to break the bank when it comes to lay down your hard-earned greenbacks. What needs to be understood about the Indy is that it's not a shift. But we'd forgive you if you made that mistake, because at first, we made it too. The Indy is not intended to fit into the budget class. On the other hand, it's not meant to be competition for the Rush, and it's ultra-technical competition. So here's where I think the Indy fits into the 21st century. It's a sled that has everything you need for a great day on the trail, and nothing you don't. It may not be well suited for an egomaniac who must have all the latest bells and whistles. But if you're a rider who isn't submerged too deeply in the technological revolution and simply wants a sled that will provide winters of riding enjoyment at a price the average rider can afford, with style even youngsters with the saggiest of pants and largest of monster decals will appreciate, here's your sled.
The word turbocharging conjures up images of extreme performance in the minds of gamers, truckers, car nuts, and snowmobilers. In the snowmo world, turbocharging has been popularized by Arctic Cat. Today, we're going to take an in-depth look at the Arctic Cat Turbo legacy. In the early part of the last decade, Arctic Cat boldly inserted the first four-stroke motor, a lowly 663 cylinder Suzuki automotive engine, into a snowmobile, a Panther 2-up chassis, proudly anointing the somewhat cobby 60 horsepower result, the Yellowstone Special. Little did anyone know how profoundly this never-seen-before, slow snowmobile would impact the industry over the next decade. Arctic Cat's first modern four-stroke would be the impetus for all OEMs to begin development of their own four-stroke snowmobile power plants. Arctic Cat, being who they are, a seriously performance-motivated OEM, wasted no time inserting a tiny turbocharger into the 660 triple, almost doubling its power output to 110 ponies. This really wasn't that big of a deal, you see. Suzuki was already building that engine and marketing it successfully in an automobile in both the United States and Japan. What happened next was quite literally ground-shaking. The Arctic Cat Turbo 660 started what can only be called a turbo cult, which grew throughout the middle to late 00s. Arctic stuffed the potent 110 horsepower turbo triple into an updated chassis, making it available as a one-up sport turbo, the ST, or the now legendary Turbo Touring two-up version of the same AWS platform. Buyers of Arctic Cat turbos claimed the surge of power and the jet engine auditory whoosh from the exhaust-driven turbo was addictive, and we would agree. These turbocharged sleds create an immediate demand for more turbo power. And Arctic Cat did not disappoint. Shortly after the 2005 intro of the four-valve, twin-cam, 125 horsepower twin-cylinder four-stroke, in 2006, Arctic Cat rocked the snowmobile industry with the intro of the F1100 Turbo. Everyone in the industry knew Arctic Cat had turbocharging up their sleeve when we first saw the stout and overbuilt 1100cc twin. At a claimed 177 horsepower, the Turbo 1100 literally knocked every other high-performance snowmobile off the lake. The combination of turbocharging and intercooling set the high-performance snowmobile horsepower bar insanely high. The engine was unrepentantly powerful, to the point it created belt concerns. Arctic Cat continued to produce Turbo 1100 models in both one-up and two-up trim. The aftermarket had and continues to have a heyday with this power plant. There are literally myriads of unauthorized aftermarket power controllers, intercoolers, and exhaust systems. By the end of the last decade, Arctic Cat launched an advertising and awareness campaign which legitimately claimed they built the world's fastest snowmobiles. The claim was based on the incredible power and top-end speed of the 1100 Turbo. Here's an issue which we think deserves comment. These turbocharged engines from Arctic Cat have, in our opinion, proven to be incredibly reliable. In fact, we have never had a failure of any magnitude with any Arctic Cat turbocharged engine since the arrival of the original 660. It seems to us that when you do things a lot, ultimately you end up doing them very well. To further prove this point, the all-new Pro Cross and Pro Climb chassis introduced last year came with what we feel is one of the most significant snowmobile transmission technology breakthroughs of the last decade. Arctic Cat's Torque Control Link, TCL, effectively ties the engine to the left end of the jack shaft, thereby maintaining 100% constant clutch, center-to-center, and offset. This is the answer for turbo-powered Pro Cross and Pro Climb models. In fact, the TCL is the only way to go forward with reliable hyperpower in a modern CVT snowmobile. Arctic Cat has aced the consistent and dependable transfer of insane horsepower in snowmobiles, except only Arctic has TCL technology. There's more to the expertise Arctic Cat has amassed over the last decade of building turbocharged snowmobiles. Managing the incredible heat a turbocharger radiates under load, as well as proper air circulation under hood, has been a huge challenge for the Thief River Falls manufacturer. The whole story of turbocharging wouldn't resonate with any snowmobilers we know if it didn't provide a seriously tangible improvement in the snowmobile experience. We can say this with first-hand conviction gained from holding the throttle wide open on numerous Arctic Cat 1100 turbos. This is technology that not only enhances our snowmobile experience, but it quite literally blows our minds when we look down and watch the C-note vanish behind the speedo needle with our right thumbs flattening the flipper to the bars. Arctic Cat's Turbo 1100 produces pure, unadulterated, adrenaline-dripping, addictive power. Going forward, will we see more turbocharging and more power from Arctic Cat in the future? We think it's inevitable that Arctic Cat will not only maintain, but they will protect their claim to world's fastest snowmobiles. In fact, with them setting the bar so high, we think they're forcing the competition to sit up and pay attention to turbocharging.
SnowTrax has been sponsored by Polaris, Terrain Domination, Arctic Cat, share our passion, Yamaha, snowmobiles built for the real world. That's the Yamaha advantage. And by Go Ride Ontario. There's no place like this.